Your next subtopic is technology-enabled finance transformation. Question number 1. All of the following are correct statements regarding the use of cloud computing for big data projects except businesses are hesitant to invest in an extensive server and storage infrastructure that might only be used occasionally to complete big data tasks. This is true. This is a correct statement. We are looking for the one that is not true. Businesses are reluctant to invest extensively on IT projects. Correct. Businesses only pay for the storage and computing time actually used. Yes, pay as you go. This is the correct statement. An advantage of using cloud computing includes fast access to software. This is true as well. But analysts are not required to have a detailed understanding of the available data and possess some sense of what answers they are looking for. This is not true. This is incorrect. In fact, analysts must have detailed understanding of the available data, and they must possess some sense of what answers they're looking for. So this is incorrect statement and hence our right answer. Alright, next question. Software as a service can best be defined as a type of database management system serviced by a third party for an annual fee. This is incorrect because software as a service is a licensing arrangement and this is something controlled by the third party. So this is not true. Infrastructure platform that replaces complex individual computers within a business. This is again not correct because if you are using software as a service, SaaS, then you will have your own computers, you will have your own infrastructure, right? So in software as a service, you basically access outside software using your own infrastructure. So this is incorrect. Then on-premises ERP system, this is incorrect as well because software as a service is not an on-premises system. Software as a service means this is a software that belongs to a third party from whom you have obtained this service. Then it has to be D then. Type of cloud computing in which applications are hosted by a third party for a monthly fee. That is the perfect description of service, software as a service or SaaS. An analyst prepared a forecast using newly developed system features. The analyst recently left the company and her replacement was unable to understand how to use these systems functionalities. She doesn't know. In accordance with systems development lifecycle best practices, which of the following controls would have prevented this situation from occurring? Clearly we know the answer. We know the answer. Documentation standards and procedures are developed. We needed proper documentation. That is the best way to manage a problem that arises. So having proper documentation, proper standardized documentation, this would have prevented this from happening. So let us see why not the other options. Backup activities and requirements are put into place. Clearly incorrect. Clearly incorrect is the right answer. Incorrect. Issue is not backup. Backup will not resolve the problem we are facing. This analyst, the new one, the lady, she is unable to understand what has happened. Changes made to systems are monitored and evaluated. System changes are not the issue here. And then finally, end user computing efforts are outlined. So what end users would do, this is not something that will help us resolve the current the current problem we are facing. So this is not right as well. Moving on, an IT manager has only enough resources to install either a new payroll system or a new data security system. Just one or the other, but not both. Which of the following actions is most appropriate? Okay, having the information systems steering committee set the priorities. This is correct because this committee is responsible for making a decision related to IT infrastructure. So this is correct. This is the right option because information system steering committee, that is the group within the organization that is responsible for making decisions of this nature. Giving priority to the security system, we do not have sufficient information to recommend one or the other. Leaving the decision to the IT manager, no, this is again not correct. This is not the decision he takes. This is beyond his scope. And he's not the only one that can make this big decision. Increasing IT staff output in order to for both systems to be installed. Again, as we have said that we have limited resources, we can just install either new payroll or data security, not both, so this is incorrect. So the correct option is having the information system steering committee set the priority. Which of these two should we go ahead? An insurance firm that follows the system development lifecycle concept for all major information systems projects is preparing to start a feasibility study for a proposed underwriting system. Some of the primary factors the feasibility study should include are methods of implementation such as parallel or cutover. Implementation is not the issue at this stage. Whether we go for parallel or cutover, this is determined during the implementation and the operation stage, not at this stage. Technology and related cost. Yes. When we are conducting feasibility study, then we will discuss the costs, the potential benefits. So this is correct. Possible vendors for the system and their reputations for quality. This is not true because this will be assessed after the feasibility study, not now. Then exposure to computer viruses and other intrusions. Well, this is a part of information requirement phase, not during the feasibility study. So that makes a B to be the correct option. Next. Workwell company operates in several regions, with each region performing its data processing in a regional data center. The Corporate Management Information System (MIS) staff has developed a database management system to handle customer service and billing. The director of MIS recommended that the new system be implemented in the southwestern region first to ascertain if the system operates in a satisfactory manner. We know what the answer would be. So this type of conversion is called prototype conversion. Well, prototype conversion basically involves when we install a system, bugs are identified, we refine it, then put it in place, and then this is done in an iterative fashion till we get the system that works well. So this is not what the case is all about. Pilot conversion. Now that makes perfect sense. So in pilot conversion, the final testing and switchover are accomplished at one segment or division of the company at a time. So if things work well at position A, then we go for B and C. So this is called the pilot conversion. This is perfectly correct option. Parallel conversion, again this is incorrect because parallel conversion means old and the new system, the proposed system that you're going to implement, they are run simultaneously, and then when we see that the newer system is working fine and giving the results we were expecting, then we go ahead. So this is not true. Direct conversion, again it's not correct, because direct conversion involves that the existing system is switched to the new system immediately. So this could be very risky, as we have discussed in our lecture overview. So moving on to question number 7. So in which of the following phases of computer system development would training occur? We know the answer. Training would occur when the system has been implemented and now we want our employees to become accustomed to the system. So this is clearly a very straightforward question. The process of learning how the current system functions, determining the needs of the users, and developing the logical requirements of a proposed system is referred to as, well, that's a very basic study at the moment. This is system analysis. This is where we establish what would the users need, then assessing the functionalities of the current system, developing the logical requirement of a proposed system. This is done at system analysis stage. Next, after reviewing the end user computing policy of an organization, an internal auditor audits the actuarial function and notices that some minimum control requirements are missing. Which of the following is a risk of using potentially incorrect end user developed files? When end users develop their own files using their own acquired software, there are some risks. So which of these is that risk? Management is unable to respond to competitive pressures quickly. This is incorrect because using end users computing, system can be immediately brought and run directly, so it reduces the development cycle time. So this is not true. Management continues to incur additional cost because it takes more hours to do the tasks using EUC. Again, this is wrong. End user computing results in reduced application development and maintenance cost, because the end user, they will themselves acquire a software and do whatever is required of them. So this reduces cost and time. This is incorrect as well. Management places the same degree of reliance on the files as they do on files generated from mainframe system. Now, this is the risk of end user computing. Which of the following is the risk of using potentially incorrect end users developed files? Because management, when they have the documents in front of them for decision making, so whether it is generated by EUCs or generated by the company's mainframe system, they will rely it in the same way. So management places the same degree of reliance on the files as they do on files generated from mainframe system. So this is the risk. Management receives limited information for decision making due to the lack of flexibility in EUC files. This is incorrect, because EUC end user computing, since it is customized for the individual users, so they are more flexible and responsive. This is incorrect statement. The process of developing specifications for hardware, which hardware you're going to use, software, manpower, data resources, and information products required to develop a system is referred to as a very straightforward question. It is system design, because detailed system design involves developing specifications regarding how the input will be brought into the system, processing, internal controls, so on and so forth. Okay, so moving on. The least risky strategy for converting from a manual to a computerized accounts receivable system would be, we have discussed this in theory in much more detail, parallel conversion is the least riskiest, and direct conversion is the most risky approach. We know that. Next, errors are most costly to correct during the programming. No, at programming we can just modify the code, no big deal. Much cheaper at conceptual design, even at analysis. But once the program has been tested and now it's the implementation stage, and if you now find some errors, they are most costly at this point. Hence, that's your right option. All right, next. The process of monitoring means system has been implemented. Evaluating and modifying a system as needed is referred to as not analysis. These are the early stage. System feasibility study, not at all. System has already been implemented, so this is system maintenance stage, so that makes C to be the correct option. An information system project manager is currently in the process of adding a system analyst to the IS staff. The new systems analyst will be involved with testing the new computerized system. CBA has already been done. Requirements definitions have already been done way earlier. Flow charting has all been done. System is now being tested, so it means all the three stages have already been completed. Which stage of the system development life cycle will the analyst be primarily used? Development. All these above three have already been completed. It's a fairly straightforward question. A major disadvantage of the life cycle approach to system development is that it is not well suited for projects that are, well, why don't we just look at this question from this perspective? System development life cycle approach is suitable on what kind of projects? Suitable for large, complex and structured. That's what we've studied. That's what the definition of SDLC, suitability of SDLC. So clearly unstructured, this is the right option. So SDLC is suitable and recommended when the projects are large, complex and structured. If the projects are unstructured, where the requirements are poorly defined, in that case prototyping may be the better approach. So we got C to be our correct option. Next, advantages of life cycle methodologies are: A. Reduced application development time to achieve a functioning system. Wrong. It takes longer when we are using SDLC approach. This is not correct. We are looking for an advantage. This basically is an incorrect statement. Enhanced management and control of the development process. That is true. When we apply SDLC, that results in enhanced control and overall management control and development process. Lower overall development cost. Wrong. SDLC results in higher cost. Ability to give users a function system quickly. No. Since it takes more time, so we can't say that SDLC will give users functioning system quickly. It will take more time, so that's why it's incorrect. Next, which of the following should be reviewed before designing any systems elements in a top-down approach to a new systems development? Computer equipment needed by the system. Well, our hardware requirements, we cannot assess until we are able to specify the functionality of the system. So this is incorrect. Information needs of managers for planning and control, this is true. The functionality that the system will provide to the end users is always the first consideration. Next, controls in place over the current system. Now this is totally a ridiculous option. We are going for the new system. Why would you be bothered and concerned about the controls over the existing system? Wrong. Types of processing systems used by the competitors. Well, it could be one of the considerations, but we must not forget that we have our own specific needs. It could be considered, but that's not the priority here. So information needs of managers for planning and control for our specific information requirements. That's why B is the right answer. Which of the following is the final step before placing the system in live operations? Final step. Dynamic testing, still it's the testing phase, not a right option, because dynamic testing involves executing a program with a given set of test data. So this is not true. Static testing, as you just discussed with us in our theory, like in dynamic testing we executed the program, but in static testing we just read the program code, examine the program code for its functionalities, we review the documentations, right? So no program execution is involved in the static testing. Phased conversion. Under this strategy, what we do, we convert to a new system, but at one step ahead, one function at a time. One function of the new system at a time is placed in operation, and then we go in piecemeal basis. Now let's read the question and then click the final option. Which of the following is the final step before placing the system in the live operations? We need users acceptance testing, UAT. That is the final step before the system is run or before the system is placed into live production. All of the following are strategies for converting to a new system except pilot conversion is a strategy for conversion. Parallel operations, yes. Direct cutover conversion is, but white box testing, this involves testing only. This is not the conversion strategy. So that is the right option. Next. So which of the following are objectives for performing tests during system development? What are the objectives? System responds correctly to all kinds of inputs. Correct. This is what we will do. System achieves the general result its stakeholders desire. Absolutely correct. That's what we look for. That's the objective of testing. System meets the requirements that guide or that guided its design and development. What we thought at design and development, have we achieved that in system functionality? This is one of the objectives, and system performs its function within the acceptable time. Perfect. All these 1, 2, 3, 4, all of these are the objectives for performing tests during the development stage. Makes perfect sense. Next. Effective internal control for application development should provide for which of the following? A project steering committee to initiate and oversee the system. This is perfectly correct, 100% right. A technical systems programmer to evaluate systems software. Well, this is incorrect because programmer involves in coding, not in the evaluation of the system. Incorrect. Feasibility studies to evaluate existing system. Correct. The establishment of standards for systems design and programming. This is true as well. So 1, 3, 4 is what should be the right combination, and this is the right one. Next. ABC Incorporated assessed overall risks of IT system projects on 2 standards criteria: technology used and software design structure. Now listen, technology used, if it is current, that means it has less risk. New means risky. So technology is either new or current. Current will have low risk, new will have high risk. Design structure, if design structure is well defined, it will have less risk, but if it's sketchy, it will have high risk. Now the question says the following system projects have been assessed on these risk criteria. Which of the following projects holds the highest risk to ABC? New technology, higher risk, and sketchy design structure will have the highest risk. So it's going to be current and sketchy. No, this is not the correct combination. New and sketchy, yes. New technology would be risky, and if the design structure is sketchy, it will be risky. So if I ask you which of these options will pose the least risk, so in that case you need the current technology that is already established and your design structure that is well defined. So in this case the risk would be the lowest. In this case, the risk would be the highest. All right. Gray box testing involves examining functionality without any knowledge of the source code. This is not gray box testing. This is basically black box testing. We have read the theory. Testing internal structures or workings of a program, just studying the source code, the programming, the system designing. This is white box testing. This is incorrect as well. Then executing program code with a given set of test cases. This is called dynamic testing. So this is incorrect. We are looking for gray box testing. So gray box testing involves having knowledge of internal data structures and algorithms for the purpose of designing tests. That makes it to be the correct option. Which of the following is a correct statement regarding combinatorial test design? Seeks to verify the interfaces between components against a software design, account receivables, account payables, inventory management. So how collectively do they work? So this is not combinatorial testing, this is integration testing. So this is the wrong option. Tests a completely integrated system to verify that the system meets its requirement. Well, this is not correct because end-to-end testing, also called the system testing, this test basically helps to see if the integrated system works as per our system requirements. So this is incorrect. C, determines whether the system meets the organizational needs and is ready for release. Incorrect. That is acceptance testing. Then it has to be option D, identifies the number of tests needed to get the coverage developer wants. So as you would remember from your outline, the theory that there are unlimited number of tests, almost limitless tests. So we can't do all the testing. So what we can do is we can just select few tests that are feasible, keeping in mind the resources and time we have, and then find whether the system is working as intended. So combinatorial test design is that identifies the number of tests out of limitless tests needed to get the coverage developer wants. That is your option D to be the correct option. Then we have question number 25. Which of the following best describes the acceptance testing? Tests a completely integrated system to verify that the system meets its requirements. This is basically system testing, or what, as you discussed earlier, it's end-to-end testing. So this is not right option. Seeks to verify the interfaces between components against software design. Well, that's again we discussed in our previous question. This is integration testing. Then verifies the functionality of a specific section of a code and handling of data passed between various units. Clearly this is the description of unit testing that tends to verify the functionality of specific sections of the code. This is incorrect. And then finally then it has to be D, determines whether the system meets the organization needs and is ready to use. This is what you call the acceptance testing, and that makes D to be our correct option. Which of the following statements is true regarding unit testing? Verifies the functionality of a specific section of the code. We just discussed that. And it checks the handling of data passed between various units or subsystem. This is true. This is true. Both options are true because both statements are true regarding unit testing. Next. Which of the following testing methods examines the program's code and its associated documentation through reviews, walkthroughs, or inspections, but does not require the program to be executed? So this is static testing. We have already discussed in our previous MCQs in detail. During a post-implementation review of an accounting information system, an accountant learned that the AIS with few customized features had been budgeted and scheduled to be installed over 9 months for $3 million, including hardware, software, and the consulting fees. An in-house programmer was assigned as the project manager and had difficulty keeping the project on schedule, 9 months. The implementation took 18 months, double what was originally envisaged, and actual costs were 30% over the budget. That's about 3.9 million. Many features were added to the system on an ad hoc basis, need come basis, with the project manager's authorization. Of course, the end users are very satisfied with the new system. The steering committee, however, is dissatisfied about the scope creep, and that's what you, more work, more cost, more time, and would like a recommendation to consider before approving initiation of another large project. Based on those findings, the accountant should recommend implementing a contract management system. Is a ridiculous term here. This is basically a collection of activities such as planning supply chains, designing facilities, warehousing, transporting, distributing goods. So this has nothing to do with the case in hand. This is incorrect. Second, budgeting system. Well, yes, there is a discussion of budgets that 3 million was allocated. The time was 9 months, so we spent more money, 30% more, and almost twice the time. So even this is affected by budgeting, but budgeting cannot resolve the problem we have here. Their problems lie somewhere else, not in the budgeting system. Then project timekeeping system. Yes, we did spend 18 months instead of 9 months, so this could help lower the time, but what about the cost? So it will partly address the issue, not the whole. Yes, it is D, change control system. Before we select this option, we need to understand it well. Change and control. Users who would be interacting with the system. So during the life of the application development and its implementation, users keep on asking for changes. And these changes needs to be controlled. So we need to have a proper change control system to ensure that the next project is implemented in a more satisfactory manner. This is what would resolve the problem. And that's what has happened here. More functionality, of course, was requested by the users, and that's why there's more cost and more time. So we need to address this issue. Next. A bank was considering its first use of computer-aided software engineering case to develop an inquiry system for accounts representatives to access consolidated profiles of customers' accounts. A benefit of using case in this situation is that the need for testing would be reduced. Well, this is incorrect, because whether the system is developed through case or through conventional SDLC, testing is essential. We need testing. The benefit is that when you use case, system has an inbuilt functionality to manage all the testing that are required for the system. So this is the benefit, but need for testing would be reduced. This is incorrect. No new software development tools would be needed. This is incorrect, because when you use case, you will have to acquire the development tools to develop the software. So this is incorrect. Then no training of programmers would be required. Incorrect as well. Well, because the first time we use case, the computer aided software engineering, you will have to train your programmers on how to use case. So this is incorrect. Management of development process would be improved. That is true. This is the correct option. This is the major advantage. Case software will maintain the links between different components, provides built-in project management tools, and supplies automated testing aids. So that's the benefit of using case. Then ordinarily, the analysis tool for systems analyst and steering committee to use in selecting the best system alternative, which system should we use, is user selection. This is incorrect, because users may not have the necessary systems knowledge to make a decision. You can't ask your account payable or account receivable staff members to select the best system alternative. They do not have the knowledge for that. Decision tree analysis. Decision tree analysis normally is used in complex decision making, having multiple options. But since we may have 2 or 3 alternatives, why do we have to construct such a complex decision model? Third, cost benefit analysis. That makes sense. Yes, we'll have to see the cost and the expected benefits and functionality. So that makes sense. This should be the right answer. Pilot testing, of course, is irrelevant here, because it's a testing methodology we use after the development of system, and the system has been developed. So it's incorrect. Moving on to the next question. 2 phases of systems planning are project definition and project initiation. All of the following are steps in the project initiation phase. Remember, initiation, just starting a project. So which of these is not one of these steps in project initiation? We have to find the odd man out. Training selected personnel. This is correct. This is a part of project initiation. Preparing the project proposal. This is incorrect. This is the odd, because this is done at the project definition phase. when we conduct feasibility studies, determine the project's priority, submitting the proposal for approval. So this was the odd. Informing managers and employees of the project, that is the project initiation. And assembling the project team, that is the project initiation. So A, C, and D, they are the components or the steps of project initiation, but B is not. Next. A system approach used to quickly produce a model for user interfaces, user interactions with the systems, and process logic is called, well, neural networking. Absolutely wrong. Neural networking basically is a combination of hardware and software that copies the processes and activities of the human brain. This is totally irrelevant here. Prototyping, that is correct, because prototyping it copies or simulates users' participation, because the prototyping model allows for quick exploration of concepts and the development of solutions with the quick results. So this is what we are looking for. Re-engineering, this is incorrect, because re-engineering involves using components of the older discarded system and then using that to restructure a newer system or improving the old system. So this is not correct. Application generation, well, this is an innovation in software engineering. What is an application generator? It's a software in which you can just specify the requirement and then computer will write the code for you. Amazing. So this is not what we're looking for here. Next. At what phase in the system development process is a report generated that describes the content, processing flows, resource requirements, and procedures of a preliminary system design? Okay, first option is procedures design. Well, procedures design, or sometimes called the logical design, it consists of mapping the flow and storage of data elements that will be used by the new system. So this is not what we're looking for. Next, file and database design. Well, this is incorrect as well, because database design is the process of producing a detailed plan containing all the needed logical and physical design choices we have for system development. This is incorrect. Then conceptual systems design. Well, at this stage, a report is generated that describes the content, the processing flows, resource requirements, and procedures of preliminary system design are shown. So this is the right option. Why not physical system design? Physical system design basically involves planning for the specific interaction with the program code and the hardware platform that we will use to run that code. So this is not what we are looking for, hence we got our right option. Next, after using the report writer for several months, the marketing analyst gained confidence in using it, but the marketing department manager became concerned. Why? Whenever analysts revised reports they had written earlier, the coding errors kept reappearing in their command sequences, bugging. There are bugs. The manager was sure that all the analysts knew what the errors were and how to avoid them. The most likely cause of the reappearance of the same coding errors is inadequate backup, inadequate change control, inadequate access control, or is it because of inadequate testing? Let's first see inadequate backups. There's no issue of backup. There's no issue of inadequate access controls even. The bugs are reappearing, so it's not because of access control, not even testing. Inadequate testing is not the cause of this reuse of erroneous code. Basically, the problem is with the change control. Change control manages changes in information system, resources, and procedures, and that's where the problem is, and that's why there is reappearance of errors. Next, an electronics company has decided to implement a new system through the use of rapid application development techniques. Which of the following would be included in the development of the new system? A. Using object development techniques to minimize the use of previous code. This is totally incorrect, because when we use object development techniques, we basically use the previous code, and this will totally invalidate this option, because in this case, if you use object development techniques, it will maximize the use of previous codes. Incorrect. Deferring the need for system documentation until the final modules are completed. Well, system documentation is a must. So you cannot eliminate or defer it just because you are using this rapid application development. This is incorrect. Then option C, removing project management responsibilities from the development teams. This is incorrect. Project management involves development teams, so you can't just eliminate them entirely. Then it has to be D, creating the system module by module until completed. The new system would be developed module by module until it's completed. That's the correct option. Next, management of a company has a lack of segregation of duties within the application environment. Developers, programmers, they are messed up, not clearly defined who is supposed to do what. With programmers having access to development and production, no, this is wrong. Programmers should only have access to development. They should have no access to the program that is currently running, the live software or the production software. The programmers have the ability to implement application code changes into production without monitoring or adequately assurance function that everything is fine. This is not correct. I hope you remember the sandbox testing where we just make changes in an offline version of the software, and then when changes are made, they are approved, authorized, they are tested, and once they work fine, then they are made to go live into production software. So this is not right here. This is considered a deficiency in which of the following areas? It is straightforward change control. Look no further. There is no need to go for anything else. Which of the following is a correct statement regarding phase conversion? Phased conversion. The old system is shut down and the new system takes over processing immediately. This is incorrect because this is the direct cutover conversion, incorrect option. The old and new systems both run at full capacity for a given period, that is parallel conversion, not the phased one. So this is incorrect. One function at a time of new system is placed in operation. Now we are talking. This is the phased conversion. And one branch, department or division at a time is fully converted to the new system. Well, that will be pilot conversion for you, so this is not what we're looking for. Next, all of the following are characteristics associated with the direct cutover conversion except. Direct cutover conversion is time saving. Yes, you save a lot of time. It is less costly. It's inexpensive. Yes, it is risky. It is risky, inexpensive and time saving, but it is not safe. Direct cutover conversion involves simultaneously shutting down the old system and having the new one take over processing immediately. Direct cutover is least expensive, yes. Less time consuming, yes. But it is also the riskiest. But there is no way we can say it's safe. It has more risk. Next question. What would a company do when seeking competitive advantages in planning for the implementation of a new software design? Design an optimal process and then align the software. This is the right approach, because once a new process or system has been approved by the IT steering committee, a project team is assembled from different areas that will be affected by the system, consisting of representative of the end users who requested it and the IT personnel who will design and build the software components that will support it. So that is the right option. Moving on to the next question, number 40. Which of the following conversion strategies is characterized by a manager removing the old system and installing the new system without the possibility of reverting to the original? ITF, that is not correct. ITF used in internal auditing. I hope you would remember from your section E, an ITF creates a fictitious entity in a database to process some dummy or test transactions simultaneously with the actual data from the main system and see how the results are given by the system. So what the situation we have is the direct changeover. Installing the new system without the possibility of reverting the original is direct changeover. Alright, next. Not the phased one, not the parallel. We have discussed these earlier. Which of the following large-scale conversion approaches to system implementation present the greatest risk to an organization? Direct. Done many times. Which of the following features is classified as a part of an expert system? Issuance of purchase requisitions notices as soon as the on-hand balance reaches the reorder point. Let's say we have set 10,000 units to be the point where we should requisition or order new units. So this level, when once reached, the system will prompt and a requisition notice would be issued. This is not an expert system. We are looking for the features that is classified as a part of an expert system. This is not. Automatic placement of order with suppliers who currently offer the best combination of price, freight cost and delivery time. Now this is the feature of expert system. Now this system is trying to interact imitate the reasoning of human mind. It's trying to find the best combination of price, the freight cost, and delivery time, and overall so that the cost could be reduced. This is the best example of an expert system. Use of electronic mail to route and approve purchase requisitions. It's just a routine task, it's just that the feature in the new software, but it is not a simulated thinking like the one we have in B. Automated obligation of budget funds as soon as an order is issued. This interactivity or this functionality is available in our latest real-time systems that have the capacity to process as soon as the data becomes available. So this is not the feature of simulated thinking that we have here in option B. So that's why it's incorrect. Next, the purchasing department buys cleaning compound from 4 different companies. The computerized purchasing system uses decision table to select vendor based on continually changing cost, delivery rates, past experience. Reasoning is there. So this is an example of an expert system, and that's what we have just done. Which of the following artificial intelligence information system cannot learn from experience? Case-based reasoning systems. Well, these are the systems that work in a similar way that is used by humans to learn from past experience or previous experiences. So this is not right. Rule-based expert system. Well, in rule-based expert system, the basis of set rules have to be followed by the system. These cannot be changed by the system itself. So they must be changed by the programmer, the outside source, the computer programmer. So this is clearly is the system that cannot learn from past experience. Intelligent agents, they do neural networks. Yes, they do. Which of the following incorporates making the best decisions possible using logical approach by asking a series of questions, by using reasoning, and by allowing subjective inputs and outputs? Decision support systems, no. Decision support system is simply an extension of your MIS, or what you call management information systems. Expert systems, yes. Expert system is a software that can perceive, that can reason, that can understand. So that is your right option. Multi-networking simply involves using multiple networks with the same computer, and then we have teleprocessing. Teleprocessing basically refers to connections in an online system. So we got our right answer. Next, in an effort to recognize improvement opportunities, a company is reviewing its in-house systems. The best reason for the company to consider switching to cloud computing as a solution is that. Why would a company move to cloud computing? Which of these is the best reason to move to cloud computing? It usually has a lower upfront cost for equipment and maintenance. This is absolutely right. That's why we go for cloud computing. It results in lower cost. We just have to pay for what we do, what we use. We don't need to invest in technology. We don't have to be worried in upgradation of technology. Provides better program modification options. You don't have the control. You just use the services of software and infrastructure. You can't modify the program. Is the best way to secure sensitive corporate information? Now this is tricky. When the information is sensitive, then using cloud computing could be dangerous. The information, what if is hacked, then you will be in trouble. Is accessible only from within the company on its intranet, then what is the benefit of cloud computing that is only accessible within the organization? Then why don't you install your local servers? So this is incorrect. Next, cloud computing can be defined as a model that allows organizations to use the internet to access and use services and applications that run on remote third-party technology infrastructure. This is the best description of cloud computing. Next, a company has abandoned the large array of dedicated servers it formerly used to store and provide access to its database. The company has entered into a contract with a provider who will guarantee storage of the database at its own location along with access over the internet. This arrangement is an example of, that is cloud computing. Correct. Wide area network, like is network in a city where there are many networks and that are connected together. So it's a network of networks in a city. That is called wide area network. Okay, then we have Ethernet. What is Ethernet? Ethernet basically it's a way of connecting computers and other network devices in a physical space, maybe just in an area 1 or 2 kilometers in diameter or circle or in radius, This is often referred to as the local area network, or what we frequently refer to as LAN, LAN. Then what is distributed computing? Now this is interesting. Distributed processing means the processing is decentralized. Our data storage are assigned at location A, processing is of process X is assigned at position B, C and D. So there are multiple computers in multiple locations assigned to perform different tasks and processing on our data. So this is not what we are looking for. Then we have question number 49, which probably is the last one. A company is considering to move to a software as a service offering instead of a traditional in-house application. Which of the following concerns is unique to software as a service? User credential setup and control over the actions that employees can perform. This is present both in the in-house application, traditional in-house application, or the SaaS, software as a service. So this is not something unique to SaaS. It's present in both. Allocation of software expenses and overhead charge to departments. Again, this is something we do normally in traditional in-house application, and that's what you will have to do in software as a service platform if you're using. So this is common in both situations. I hope you know your topic, allocation of service department costs, your IT costs, human resource costs. It has to be allocated or charged to different departments for performance evaluation. So this is what it is. Using SaaS or traditional in-house application, the IT cost has to be allocated to different or charged to different departments. So this is common. Then ownership of process data and the cost of data migration. This is the correct option, because when you are using SaaS, this is the unique feature of SaaS, because your data is on cloud servers. So the controls by SaaS may not be as stringent as you may have in your organization. So there is a risk of unauthorized access. This is what you call the ownership of process data is in danger. Additionally, the cost of migration. What does it mean if you move from one SaaS to another? The cost of data migration could be high. That's what it says. When you decide to migrate your data, the use of cloud computing will likely incur additional cost when the data migration occurs. So that's the point, and that ends your topic, technology-enabled finance transformation.